This week on Meeting Minds, we have a super special episode for you. We are going to be talking to somebody in the lifestyle and active brands, and their company reaches audiences of over 70 million people. Stay tuned. You are not going to want to miss this.
This is Meeting Minds with Charles Ide. Join Charles as he chats with the leaders in today's event world on how you can take your events to the next level. Broadcasting from the IdeCon studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is Meeting Minds with Charles Ide.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Meeting Minds. I am your host, Ashley Hawks. I was about to say new host, but I think this is like my 5th or 6th episode, so I don't think I'm allowed to say new anymore. So we just have to jump right into it. But you guys, I'm so excited. I have a really, really special guest, someone that I've had the opportunity to get to know over the last couple of weeks, just learn a little bit more about what she does in the events world. It's amazing. She is the director of events at a company called Outside. They have brands that reach over 70 million people. And her specific brand is called Idea Health and Fitness. I am so excited to welcome my special guest today to Meeting Minds, Marissa Piper. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi there. Yes, so great to be here. I've been really looking forward to this.
I know. I'm excited. We probably spent the better part of 20 minutes chatting before we actually started recording. And I'm going, we should have been recording that.
There's some podcast. This was good stuff.
Very good. We're kind of casual around here. It's really good. But I've got some really exciting stuff that I want to dive into. You have just amazing experience in the events world from all over the country and big brands, including Tony Robbins, which I want to talk about later. But before we dig into that, tell us just a little bit about you, how you got started in the events world.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. And it's so fun to get to talk about what you love to do. And it never seems like work. It always seems like play. But how did I get involved? Kind of, I think by accident. I started off in medical device sales, which was just the biggest mistake of my life because I can't sell anything, but I can talk to people. And so ultimately, I think people just bought stuff from me because they felt sorry. But I had and found this passion for events through medical devices because I got to go to the trade shows. So that's where I saw myself thriving. And I kind of took it, one step further when I was like, hey, maybe I'm not the best salesperson because I really don't like asking people for money, but I really can talk to people, and I love this idea of building an event. I love the idea of building the trade shows. So I kind of transgressed from there. I kind of stepped out of the sales role. I stayed in the trade show industry just a little bit. And then I started on a whim, and all this entailed some moving around, but on a whim, I had moved back to San Diego. And I had some friends who were really involved in in politics and local politics and community organizing. And that sort of took flight for me when I started doing and organizing some campaign events for Decline to Sign and No on 8 and HRC, which are some really hyper-focused political action committees for gay marriage. And this was back when we were really fighting for equality, trying to get it taken off the ballot because it had already passed in California. So I said, sign me up. I'm on board. Oh, you're going to make nothing. Super cool. We're going to work hard. So I did that for a couple of years, which actually really helped me kind of get my, community organizing chops and learning a lot about larger events. And from there, it snowballed. And I ended up doing a bunch of events for the gay community. I did a lot of large parties. And then I took my next step into TV, which really helped with sort of building my AV understanding. And I think if you've been in this industry long enough, if you are multifaceted, it's a massive advantage. If someone's just stuck to trade shows or if someone's just stuck to ballroom, it's no offense, but really, really broadening your perspective and spectrum of understanding is very helpful. So TV for a couple of years really helped me learn the ins and outs of camera, shots, lights, audio, and things that I didn't have as much from doing just the community organizing and live events. And from there, I started my own company and I started taking on clients, doing their events, mostly in California. Pretty basic, but fun. I got to make my own schedule. I was taking on, the amount of work that I could. And excuse me, the next the ride from there was Tony Robbins. And I had started I started doing my own thing for a couple of years. And one of my best friends, she had worked for Tony Robbins for quite a long time. And I had the privilege of seeing her at work one time in New Jersey. And I was living in New York City and I popped over to see an event. And I just said to myself one day, I said, I'm going to do this. I said, I'm going to work for Tony Robbins. And I put it out there. And I think maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years later, I got a job with Tony Robbins and it popped up. It was available. I left working for myself, went back to working for someone else full time. And I did that for 3+ years with Tony on the road all over the world. I think we could dedicate, another 8 hours of podcasting to talk about what that experience is like, because if you know him, he's larger than life. And boy, do I have stories, and I'm still tired. And then
how do you keep up with that man's energy, by the way?
You don't. I mean, it's actually not normal. So, and then I got back to New York City and I was working for the Clio Awards, and it happenstance, I hired a company to do our production for one of our big shows. And they poached me right then and there at our event because they had an opportunity that I think they thought I'd be perfect for, which was producing WorldPride, which will probably be the pinnacle of my career in Times Square. And then the coronavirus hit. And then I was a refugee from New York City. And, all the things happened when we had to flee. And, we can go into that. But that's sort of my 22-year, how I ended up here and back in San Diego, working for Idea Health and Fitness under the Outside brand. And couldn't be happier. I love the path that I have no regrets. But little led to big, and the big made me see that there's just such a massive world out there for live events that people don't even know about. And so I just said, where can I go from here?
Tell me more about WorldPride, because that is an incredible event, and to be a part of something like that. And what year was that? 2019?
2019, yes.
Yeah.
So we planned for almost a year by the time I'd been poached by this company, Ideco Productions, and they, I was probably about a year. And what's really cool about WorldPride is this was the first domestic WorldPride event, right? So WorldPride is all, it's all over every 2 years. And so New York City won the bid for the 50th anniversary of Pride. So here now it lies, 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, started as a riot, turned into a celebration. And now, I get to be a part of building an event in Times Square for 14,000 plus people as the finale to WorldPride, of a weekend of celebration, which actually turned into basically a month of celebration because of all the parties. And I mean, New York City was just one big rainbow bomb. It was probably one of the coolest things I ever got to be a part of, not only just living in New York City as a New Yorker, but also being part of the experience to give a community that I'm so deeply passionate about, as it is mine, but also because it's so important to recognize that me wouldn't be standing here today doing and having the life that I have if it wasn't on the backs of those that paved the way and didn't get to experience the same things that we have because of just generalized privilege. And so, I think that my respect for that event came down to everyone that has paved the way for the younger generations that have now had the ability to marry freely, love out loud. And that is never, I don't think in my heart that's ever going to go away. The pride that I have for that older generation of that community. And that's where that event came from. That's where the sweat and tears came from.
I love it. And we were talking about this before we started recording too. For us crazy people that get into events, it's not about just sharing a message, right? If it was about sharing a message, we'd send an email or we'd make a video. But there's something special about getting people together to experience something at the same time in the same place, and that power and that energy that happens when you get just massive amounts of people together. I mean, it's life-changing, if you can do it well, of course.
Sure.
What I want to talk about is I want to talk about with everything going on, and we're coming into second quarter of 2021, and that energy of being in person is not there right now. You just got done producing a really great virtual event. I want to talk about how do you keep that passion and excitement going, not only for yourself, like to get up and out of bed every day to do this alone from our house and speaking to a virtual audience. Like, how do you keep that energy up? How do you keep that passion going when we're stuck in virtual right now?
Sure. I think a couple of things. I think, one of the things that I always say is we have to manage people's expectation. It's never going to be the same, but we can do our best. And by that, we can put out everything that we know about a live event into a virtual event to see if it translates. Let's just, let's talk music, right? Let's talk transitions. Let's put a run of show together that, is going to make people feel like they're sprinting to their next session. Like, hey, I've just finished that. I got this. I got a little break. I'm going to pump some music. And so we can do things like that are been tools for us to sort of help people feel like they're at a live event. But also one of the big things is helping presenters learn how to present, well lit, clean backgrounds, quality audio. Does your platform have the ability to use a slide advancer? That sounds so basic, but instead of like having to constantly go back and forth from your computer, there's just a polished look to it. As you wouldn't be on stage pressing your laptop. If you were presenting, you'd have someone would be running the room for you. So there's the little things that I wanted to do. So in this next event, we built presenter kits into our budget, something that we're sending to each presenter to make sure that, they look, sound, and can act great. And then, just generalize keeping the energy up in the chat rooms and, really high energy from my team, addressing concerns immediately, like just stuff like that, I think gives us sort of a live event feel.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Oh, that's such good advice. One of the questions I have, you've been in this for so long and you've done a lot of different aspects of event and run of show. What do you feel like is something that you are particularly skilled at that maybe most people in your field are not? What makes you awesome? Brag on yourself, girl.
Check your ego, Marissa. No, I think what one of the things that has helped me stand out in my career is I just don't get flustered. I mean, and for me, and my joke always has been, if you see me flustered, if you see me freaking out, it is a bad day. It's like, run, take cover, because it just doesn't happen. So I think what it is it's training. It's training yourself that if you can remain calm, your team can remain calm. When you exude a sense of calm, people around you stay calm. I mean, it doesn't matter, if you run around like someone's hair's on fire, everyone else is going to run around like their hair's on fire. And if that person's hair is actually on fire and you just go, hold on one second, let me just get this little cup of water, you're going to calmly put the fire out and no one's going to freak out around you. And I think that that's some training that I've taught myself in the last, 10, 12 years is just maintain a sense of calm, keep your team level-headed, always address things, with a broad spectrum of questions, like how can I fix this? What are my 911s right now? What do I need to do right now in this moment? What can go, 10 minutes from now? What can go 15 minutes? So it's this like calculated precision in my mind of like picking through like the 911s, picking through the 411s and saying, hey, let's focus on this right now, staying level-headed and tackling it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the best advice. If you get flustered over every little thing, the events world is probably not for you. We did an event probably about a month ago and I was doing the debrief with the client and just seeing, how did everything go? And I got the best feedback that I've ever received from a client. And I posted it on LinkedIn because it was just so special. And it's something like, it's common sense that we all know we should do. But when somebody compliments you on that, you kind of step back and go, wow, okay, that really is important. And what she said, she was like, the event went perfect. It was great. Your team did great, production, whatever. She goes, but the thing that I most appreciated, we had a lot of last minute changes. And, they all happened within a couple hours pre-show. And every time we had a change or we had something that we needed to like move around, your team with a smile went, okay, no problem.
Sure.
Easy. And she goes, even in their facial expressions, they never made us feel like we were an inconvenience. They never rolled their eyes. They never made it a big deal, like another change. And she goes, I know that sounds so stupid, but we've gotten that from event people in the past all the time. And this is how she finished it up saying was, it wasn't just what you did, right? You guys did your job of producing a good show, but more importantly, it was how you did it. And I think that's so important for us event people is to understand, like, yes, we're putting together an experience, right? But sometimes how we bring everything together and how we're making people feel during the planning and during the event itself is just as important and maybe sometimes more important than the actual event itself. So I just shout out to Todd on my team because it just, it just made me feel really good about the work that we do. That it's not just the audience, but the client that we're serving too. And they're like, thank you. Like this is the most relaxing event we've ever done.
Yeah, I imagine too that same amazing advice that you got is also the ability to say, I think everyone should work on the vendor side and the client side, because having both perspectives is also something that if you walked in a client's shoes and the pressure from their bosses that they're getting for this event to be done, 100% perfectly, but then you've also been on the vendor side and then go back to being a client, you then can walk in someone else's shoes for a hot second. And I'll tell you, that really helped me when I went back to the vendor side of things. And I was like, oh God, I was the client for so long. I need to I need to check this. I need to address this. And it made me a better vendor. And so I think, now I'm on, now I'm client side of things because I, just the way things have worked out. But I think that that's and you should revel in that compliment because it is so hard to sometimes deliver quality events with a smile on your face and knowing that you have been put through the ringer, and last minute changes are like the crux of how we survive. I mean, like, we're like, oh, if there's a last minute change, weird. Okay.
It's events. There's always going to be last minute changes. I hate to break it to you, but I like what you said earlier. Like it comes from experience. Yes, we know we shouldn't roll our eyes or shouldn't go when something difficult happens, but that comes through experience and through learning. I want to know maybe someone or something in your event that was really impactful or influential that kind of like set you in the direction or kind of like set you up for success. Because usually somebody, at your level of success, there's a turning point or there's someone or something. Tell me about that.
Well, I think so the friend that I mentioned earlier, her name's Talanya Geary, and she worked for Tony Robbins for quite a few years. And then I'm actually going back and working for a couple more years recently in the last couple of years. She is one of my closest friends, excuse me. And I'll always describe her as being the smartest person in the room, right? She just has that thing, that air about her. But she's also just a serial entrepreneur, right? She is someone that has seen something that no one else can see in the moment, capitalized on it. She was one of the first that had a, all lesbian, owned and operated and geared magazine. So she started her media company. We did lesbian focused events that were, non-existent in a world that was, really had monopolized the gay male community for parties and other things. So I looked at her as someone that I never saw her get flustered. And I worked for her for a long time. When I did my own thing, I was also working for her. She was the one that brought me on as a client. So I would say, like, as far as love and respect, there's probably no one in this world that I admire more. And we also have the best time together, and it's such a fun friendship. But she also wrote a book and went on, gave up everything to do a book tour. And I saw someone, just living and breathing her best version of herself and her best days. And she helped me become that calm. She helped check me when I needed to be checked. And that's a friend. That's a person. That's someone that, you're never going to let, your friendship get in the way. It's like, no, you can do this better. Okay. show me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're humble enough, which you should be, especially in this world, you got to have thick skin and you can't be offended. And so, and those are my two things. So you can't hurt my feelings, And so I think that when I learned that and when I got that from her, it changed the trajectory of my career. So huge shout out to her. We'll always, heart love her. And then the relationship that I had with WorldPride is really in one of the other ones that kind of set my career in a different motion because they were the client and I was the vendor. It was so symbiotic because, here we are all part of the same family, but working towards this incredible outcome. I've never seen people busier in my life than the New York City Pride team that took on WorldPride. And, this is New York City, so nothing's easy already, right? On a good day, it's just like you got to work and your train didn't die and there wasn't a stabbing and, you didn't get spit on and you're like, hey, Mary, I made it, And so, on a good day, it's easy to work in New York City, but then it's summertime and tourists and now WorldPride. And we've got, NYPD, FDNY, we've got different community groups that we have to get all of these permits passed through and community boards and Times Square Alliance. And I never saw this woman falter. And her name's Amanda Younger. And I was actually on her podcast. She started a podcast after when the apocalypse began. And she is probably just someone I have some of the utmost respect for in the industry to do what she did in New York City with WorldPride and never once sweat, never once. I don't even think I ever saw her get upset. So those are the kind of people that you want to emulate. Those are the people you want to be. And then I was also working for her because, she was my client. They picked my company. So I had a huge responsibility. And so those are some people that really helped change the course of my career or really give me better tools, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable. I know that question can sometimes be like, oh, I don't know, I just worked hard. Sometimes people, it's hard to give credit elsewhere or sometimes people haven't even taken the time to pinpoint, who it was or what it was that helped, create their career, because it is, you're a combination of all these different influences, good and bad, so
if you haven't failed, how have you become successful? Mm-hmm. And if you haven't failed and you've told me you haven't failed, I don't trust you. And so everyone in this world and everyone that works in the events world should know that if you're going to come work for me, I am going to ask you, how did you celebrate your most recent failure? Because you should celebrate it. Because if you're good at what you do, you're going to celebrate it and you're not going to do it twice. Mm-hmm. But the thing is you're going to have people in this road and in this world and in the events world that are going to be like, that was a mistake. This is what I think you should do. Let's move forward. And so instead of being like, that was a mistake, F you, table flip, it's all done, let's go apocalyptic, it's more of like, how can I give you the tools to be better and learn from this? And so, I'm just a combination of successful failures. So it's,
I'm making a t-shirt. I'm a combination of successful failures.
Yeah, it's true.
But that is true, and that's why I love this podcast, because the more that we can share our failures and the more that we can be open and vulnerable and speak the truth of what real success looks like, I feel like it's so empowering and inspiring for other people that are starting out and are like, oh my gosh, this is so hard.
We should have a separate podcast where let's talk about your mistakes. And I'll be like, how much time you got?
We'll have to think of a different meeting minds,
Yes.
failed minds, failed story.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for episode 2 of all of our failures.
Stay tuned for Marissa Piper's most recent failures.
Oh my gosh, I love it. How can people get in touch with you if they want to just like connect or learn more about, outside, or they just kind of want to see what cool projects you're working on?
Yeah, I can give you my email. I can, my email's mpiper@outsideinc.com. You can always reach me at that. I'm always happy. Look at how we met. I think what's really great about this world is, Ashley sent me an email through LinkedIn and, here we are a couple months later, and I think because if you fall into this world and you know this world, then you're also looking for allies, right? You're also looking for sounding boards. You're also looking for anyone that's going to help you develop the next great thing. And I really, really, really hope with my whole heart that 2022 is going to have some blast off events, and I want to be a part of it. And I'm I'm bringing my team there, and, we're planning our Vegas World Conference, for 2022, and it's in person. I'm manifesting that. And so, we're going to have another virtual event this year. We're going to knock it out of the park. And that event's, July 9th through 11th. And more to come on that, because we haven't even opened registration. But you can always go to Idea Health and Fitness to check us out.
And we can link all this on our show notes too. So if you guys listening want to check out meetingminds.org, we'll put a link maybe to Outside. We'll put a link to your LinkedIn, and then a link to the World Conference coming up in July, because that sounds like a really cool event.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for it.
Come in as someone that doesn't need the education and that doesn't need the CECs. Come in as an expo. If you're a fitness buff, or if you're a fitness lover, come in and check out our expo and walk, scroll through our expo hall and see some of the really great sponsorships that we have in the fitness industry.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to see it. Yeah, we'll put all those notes up on our website. So Marissa, thank you so much. This was so much fun. And we were joking earlier that we could probably have like 2 or 3 episodes of going down different rabbit holes. So we might have to have you back. So
you're returning guest.
Yes. So you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You can subscribe on iTunes and Spotify and all the places that you find podcasts. You can follow us along on Instagram and LinkedIn. We have a new episode launching every week. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm Ashley Hawks, and this is Meeting Minds.
Thank you for listening to Meeting Minds. Brought to you by IDCOM Event Production, changing the world one audience at a time. Follow IDCOM Creative and Meeting Minds Podcast on Instagram. And check out meetingminds.org to find show notes for this episode, past episodes, and inspiration. As always, please subscribe, leave a review, and tune in next week for another episode of Meeting Minds.